As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and artificial intelligence. Well, it's something we've been talking about kind of, in the background, and we've talked about automation of things like, the McDonald's drive-thru window. Are you going to go up and have this computer that you order from, and you take manual labor out of the picture? Well, we've been talking about that, but not on as grand of a scale as artificial intelligence genuinely means. We need to define it for what it is and show the danger that it really, really has and is a great risk to civilization. And I think that Elon Musk has been at the forefront of injecting artificial intelligence into the mainstream in terms of our conversation around this. He's been on Tucker Carlson for the last few nights, and on Monday had some really interesting commentary on what he thinks are really, really significant risks of artificial intelligence. So listen to this.
What's happening is they're training the AI to lie.
Yes.
It's bad.
To lie.
To
That's
lie.
exactly right. And to withhold information.
To lie and yes, comment on some things, not comment on other things, but not to say what the data actually demands that it say.
How did it get this way? I thought you funded it at the beginning. What happened?
Yeah, well, that'll be ironic. But the most ironic outcome is the most likely, it seems. AI is more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
So this has the capacity to completely destroy civilization. That's kind of a big deal. So I don't take that lightly from Elon Musk, and I think that you shouldn't either. So what do we do about this, and how can and should government get involved? What are we even talking about when we say artificial intelligence? Well, joining me right after this is my good friend Jake Denton, who is the tech policy advisor for the Heritage Foundation, and he has been in this space and has actually been talking to presidential campaigns. He's been talking to legislators in Congress and has been talking to some of the policymakers in the private sector who are lobbying for these things to talk about some of these guardrails and the ethics questions that we all as conservatives genuinely need to consider when it comes to artificial intelligence. And the question, of course, always should be, what is the truth here? How do we advocate for truth in civil society, and how best can our government serve to preserve and protect the ultimate mandate from our Declaration of Independence, which is to protect our rights that are given by God, our Creator. So stick around and listen to Jake Denton right after this. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you. So joining me now to break this down and the perils of artificial intelligence is Jake Denton, who is the tech policy advisor for the Heritage Foundation. And Jake, I want to start with you talking about what AI actually is, because I think for a lot of people, they kind of connect this term to like the Terminator and just, the robots and everything. But this is what we're talking about, and what Elon Musk was talking about with Tucker Carlson is something vastly different and a lot more insidious in terms of where it actually is already in a lot of our corporate culture and our systems generally. So what are we talking about when we use this term AI?
Yeah, so it can get confusing very quickly because there's a million different things happening all at once right now. We have kind of deepfake technology, right? People are now seeing, their favorite artist produce a song and it's not actually their favorite artist. It's actually just emulating their voice. But then there's also kind of the corporate side, the system side, things that you don't necessarily see on social media, things that make the back end run more smoothly. So whether it be, HR hiring softwares that auto filter for a set of criteria to, flag a resume that maybe is a better fit in theory for the employer, or for them to, streamline censorship, right? We're coming straight out of the Twitter files. Obviously, Elon's role in that was huge. He unearthed all sorts of evidence. It was very concerning. And now here we are again with Elon kind of calling into question a lot of these same types of concerns, but with AI. And I think it can't be overstated that, the censorship regime that we saw be incredibly effective with Twitter and across all of social media will only be improved with systems like AI. It streamlines things, it makes them more efficient. So across the board, this is going to touch everything. Consumer culture all the way over to corporate culture. It really, really will define our future, and there's no escaping it.
Yeah, and so Elon also talked about bias in all of this and how this is kind of going to AI is going to take a mind of its own, and how this bias. I mean, he's going so far as to say that this is going to be the destruction of civilization. And in a sense, if this does get out of control and there are moral and ethical judgments being made by computers instead of that human input, is it possible to ever replicate kind of the human judgment in a metric type of system that is thinking for itself in a sense?
No, and I think that will ultimately be the main concern as this reaches very sensitive areas of our economy, such as the healthcare industry and the legal profession. Ultimately, what makes us human is kind of that emotional response to the inputs we're receiving, right? So whether that be a case you get put on your desk or a patient that's on the table, the way that you respond to that situation, there's something uniquely human about that. And these, AI systems are being trained on text inputs. They lack that spirit to them. And so they ultimately will not reflect the same decision-making process as kind of the, average person would in that situation. Instead, it will reflect kind of not only the inputs of the data that they got, but their corporate overlords, right? The people who design the systems and decide what that ethical framework ultimately looks like. And then, in the instance of Microsoft, they fired their entire ethics team before, they acquired that most recent stake of OpenAI. And so most of these things are going out without any guardrails from a regulatory perspective or just even an internal kind of philosophical perspective.
Yeah, and that's really scary when you think about ethics and you think about judgment. When you're talking about the legal profession, I mean, this is a conversation that my industry has been talking about for a while, in the sense that that you have these types of metrics that, like, for example, in a prosecutor's office, when you have this really high volume of cases, and then you have a different metric to say, okay, let's just input what is the charge, what are the parameters, and then it kind of spits out an offer. Well, for a plea bargain, that's not really taking into account maybe some of the mitigating factors and some of the justifications for that from some lawyers who say, well, this is actually helpful because this is now fundamentally fair to everyone if we just have one industry standard, basically, to say, if you have, like, let's say, a DUI offense, if you have a breath or blood alcohol of this level and it's and you have, this number of priors, and you have this indicia of alcohol, then this is the offer you get. And they go through that metric. But that does set up a process where it's not actually taking into account the individual circumstances that only a lawyer who is trained to issue spot and to understand the likelihood of success at trial. I mean, so many different other factors that you can't necessarily put into something like a metric. That can be genuinely unfair for people who then would be over prosecuted. And it can also be unfair to the people that a prosecutor's office is supposed to represent if they are actually under prosecuting more of a severe offender. So can AI ever compensate for some of those things, for example, in that type of a judgment call situation?
No, really what these systems are doing is streamlining efficiency, right? And so the metric of fairness, the metric of kind of, humanizing these subjects is never really on their mind. It's all about getting to the outcome as quick as possible. And so you turn into the metric, right? All these inputs decide the outcome, but you're another metric for the system. And that's where it gets really concerning because, we've already begun that process. The, systems are deploying with that in mind. And so as we kind of figure out what's going on, we get our feet under ourselves, and from a regulatory perspective and from an ethical perspective, we can't walk that back. We've already kind of done the damage so far, and we have to live with those initial set of inputs. And so when it hits the legal industry, when it hits the medical industry, inevitably, there's really nothing standing in the way of that right now. It's going to carry that baggage. And that's something that we're going to have to live with now. But we don't have to live with it in, its worst possible form. We could intervene and we could potentially, stop it from getting overly efficient, just getting to the quickest possible solution and disregarding all other human factors. So we're in a very troubling position right now because, I think that the one thing people don't realize is there is nothing standing in between this hitting their profession or hitting, every other aspect of their life, from their children's classroom to, the operating room for, a medical procedure. So it's coming quickly.
Yeah. And it's really a sad commentary on our society if we are only valuing high volume efficiency over the ethical and moral judgment of humans. And when Elon was talking about to Tucker about whether or not we have a soul and can machines ever kind of become human, quote unquote. Well, obviously the biblical worldview response is that there is a complete difference between humans and machines, because only humans are created in the image of God and machines will never be. And so there is something distinctly unique metaphysically and biologically with humans that will never be replicated in any other creature or system or technology that we could fabricate ourselves. And so when you're talking about moral judgment, we can't put that into the hands of just a system. And I think we've seen that breakdown already, even in instances like some of these systems in healthcare that like in the United Kingdom, when if it's kind of the single payer healthcare system, that then if you have under the threshold of a survival rate, then it's not worth, in their view, having scarce resources expended on someone who the matrix says doesn't have a likelihood of survival. Well, the human ethical judgment from the biblical worldview position that all humans have inherent dignity and worth and are valuable just on the basis of being human, and especially parents of these kids, like we remember the Charlie Gard situation, which was exactly this, is that every parent is going to say, do everything humanly possible to save my child. And so if you look at just what we've already done in some of these systems, it has been some of the worst and most atrocious cases in the healthcare industry. How much more will this be amplified if AI is extended further into some of these other industries?
Well, there's really no telling how bad it could get is the unfortunate reality. We can't even contemplate the full scope of this issue because we don't even know what it'll look like tomorrow. I think the important thing to note, as you go through the cases of, whether or not it could make an ethical decision or a human decision, we know who's coding this, right? I mean, OpenAI, you can go on the LinkedIn's, you can see where these people come from. None of them are going to be putting a primary input as the Bible, right? That is not going to be the guiding mechanism of these systems. They're going to infuse the exact same things that they learned in their liberal arts school classrooms. And that's what's going to be governing our lives. And one of the best areas that you can kind of unpack this is within the kind of consumer facing side of it, with the digital art, these things that are automated and generated. People saw this Drake song recently over the last week that hit on, Spotify, all these different platforms. Sounds just like him, wasn't Drake. And it really started making people juggle with this. Okay, if it sounds just like him, but it didn't come from him, do I still get that same feeling of fulfillment when I listen to the music? Does it still elicit the same reaction? There isn't really a great answer from a lot of people on this. They haven't really dealt with that yet. And so there was another instance too of a gentleman who submitted a photo that was AI generated to a photo contest and won the photo contest. And, is that the same thing? Is your ability to type in a prompt in a chat box and produce an interesting output the same as producing something beautiful in real life? And the obvious answer is no. And in that AI letter that Elon Musk put forward, and what was the initiation for this Tucker interview, they ask a very important question, which, legislators and a lot of these tech companies haven't actually asked, which is, are we comfortable automating away jobs, even fulfilling jobs, right? Things that are, in the arts or, these kind of human experience professions, whether it be like a nurse, right, that has to make a snap decision. Is it more efficient to have the robot do it? And we have no answers for that. We have the answers, but, the people in charge and the people who can shape this conversation don't really consider those to be, important questions. So
yeah. I feel like the Jetsons were not contemplating these conversations, back when we were like, hey, we want Rosie the robot, But you raised some important points, Jake, because these types of deep fakes, if we can see the obvious ethical problem with submitting a photo to a photo contest that is auto-generated and is even fabricated, when it's not something that you're genuinely participating in reality, that is the exact same parallel as the transgender ideology as well, right? Just fabricating a woman out of a man, and it's false, and submitting that to a competition, for example, and a swimmer competition, and winning, but that is a fabrication instead of genuinely winning that competition. And so we can see the ethical issues there, but then even again, going back to the legal profession, what about some of these deep fakes when you have video evidence? And this has been deep faked and you can't tell the difference perhaps. And the offer that is put out to the defendant is based on fabricated or falsified deep fake evidence. And nobody can tell the difference. Well, if nobody can tell the difference, that's certainly not fair to the defendant whose liberty is on the line. But also, if you can't tell whether it is true or false, that's also not fair to the victim in the case either. And so what do we do in these instances, and how should government regulation grapple with this? Because, as conservatives, we tend to say, less government regulation is better and the big administrative state. But this is where I fundamentally disagree with the capital L libertarians, that government is actually good when it is limited to doing the things and having the contours around simply rejecting evil and saying that is not permitted in society and promoting good. We have to have government if we want a well-ordered society. So how do we even start the conversation of what guardrails are legitimate and necessary to put in place?
Yeah, well, I think, the music issue is the perfect mechanism to get people talking about this. Universal Music Group essentially submitted a cease and desist order to various streaming platforms, asking them to take down that, deep fake version of a Drake song. And they kind of laid out the case there that this is obviously going to cause negative impact to the artist. They're going to lose out on their name and likeness. But that's just scratching the surface, right? This is the consumer side of things. You are not going to see the corporate side, but they're just as nefarious. And so, just like the TikTok issue, it takes something that prompts a conversation and the ball gets rolling and we can kind of have a deeper conversation about, the full scope of the issue. And it's absolutely correct. Like, the government has to have a role here. As much as we would love to see this just, develop out to the fullest extent and everything go perfectly, as you noted, a lot of these brands and these companies are interwoven with the same legacy institutions that are pushing the transgender issue. They are an extension of each other, right? The Silicon Valley hive mind is going to produce the exact same outcome in a more efficient manner with AI that they did with social media, right? So when we start to lay out the blueprint, when we start to chart course, it's going to be important to essentially start from the earliest stages where this is going to touch first, the arts, institutions, kind of protecting labor, for instance, because ultimately we'll probably redefine labor the most dramatically in the short term. But then we have to look out into the future. And this is one of the major shortcomings of our leadership currently is we don't look 30, 40 years in the future and present a coherent vision in our regulatory policy. And this will be one of the first instances where, we're going to have to regulate without necessarily seeing all the pain points. We're going to have to anticipate them 100 years into the future because we get one shot at this. If the deployment is botched, if it fails and it goes way off course and the train gets away, we can't go backwards. It's just over. And so trying to prevent that, something that we're very bad at as a country. We don't take very good preemptive action. So this is going to be a major challenge and it's going to define our future. The 2024 cycle should absolutely be defined by this because, it's ultimately all tied together through this information technology, these information systems. And there won't be a single candidate that doesn't have a run-in with a deep fake. It's just going to be the nature. I come from the campaign space. That's what we're going to be encountering all through 2024. And just like social media, the defamatory piece of content inevitably gets way more views than the correction. And so you can circulate the thing around, you get 1 million views and maybe 5,000 people see that it's fake, the damage is done. That could flip it, the Iowa caucus. I could do all these different things. And then you're just sitting there like, wow, how was no one there to protect me? So that's where, this government intervention comes in.
Yeah, and that has to be a collaboration, of course, with partners in the private sector like Elon Musk, who is saying that Twitter will play a vital role in the 2024 election. And I can see even more than some of, the commentary and the back and forth of different influencers and things like that, more of the visual content and maybe some of these deep fakes that are nefarious will actually have and serve to sway and influence disproportionately. And so are these conversations being had, and are we already kind of behind the 8 ball in our country and on the world stage in terms of putting these safeguards in place?
Yes, these conversations have been had amongst academics and kind of the scholarly side of things for years. There's plenty of literature. You can go out and find any given study on these issues or philosophical writings, but there's not a single legislator in Washington currently that's equipped to handle this issue, whether that be from just a staffing element of someone, capable of writing a bill that captures the full scope of the technical aspect of artificial intelligence, or really just kind of the awareness to navigate the various players, how things are interconnected. We are barely beginning to get a consensus understanding of how social media functions on the Hill, right? So we're that far behind the ball. And now we're adding this one in, which is there's not even a really deep talent pool in terms of the computer science people to execute these programs, right? Like these startups in Silicon Valley don't even have the people to pull from. So then you go to Washington and we're really at the bottom of the barrel just trying to get anything together. The conversations are being had. People are eager. There's an audience for it. But this is the equivalent of going back to college and learning an entirely new issue. And then, your homework just happens to be the laws that are going to be passed and shape the future of our country. And so very high stakes game we're playing. There's really no room to mess up. And I don't know if we have the best track record when it comes to tech policy that makes you go into this kind of journey we're about to embark on with high hopes. But it's the position we're in and we have to kind of make the most of it. And, whether that be from educational videos or just getting a couple of candidates on board, it's going to be a very long road and no room for mistakes.
Yeah, and this is so critical to our future. And I'm kind of with Elon after talking with you extensively about this issue, that it is a great threat in so many different areas and subject matters. It's not just about, oh, somebody created, a fake picture. It has vastly more implications than that, and genuine harm that can be perpetuated on a massive scale. So if we're not even equipped in America to really deal with this, and hopefully there will be at least sample legislation. I know that you at the Heritage Foundation are working on this, and the Heritage Foundation has been a great partner in the conservative movement to have model legislation. Has there been anything else on more of the world stage that other countries are dealing with this, and maybe we can, maybe in a good way or maybe in a way that we want to contrast from?
I think the greatest kind of comparison now is going to be China. They're essentially mirroring our development pace. They're probably a little bit behind us, but they're slow walking their public deployment. Consumers aren't touching this technology until the proper guardrails and limitations are put in place, so that they're compliant with the content guidelines in China. So, the things everyone's familiar with, you can't say Tiananmen Square, you can't go through all of those various kind of no-go zones. And so China is very concerned about the ability for this to be a runaway technology, and they're making sure that it has a clear stopping point. Beyond that, the European Union usually moves a lot quicker than what we do, but there still really isn't a clear set of guidelines that's come out of there. So essentially, you're looking at the West, which is kind of allowing these things to go very quickly, and there hasn't been a major issue quite yet. But China is taking a very cautious approach, making sure that it will be in service of their government. Right, that's kind of the method to all of their madness. And so, very diverging courses we're going to embark on. And I think the obvious thing on the horizon here is if we have a major hiccup, if we hit a major speed bump and we have to backtrack, or if we have to pause, or if we have to do one of these things, China's then just going to be able to run off to the races and really win this battle. It's ultimately an arms race, and their technology will be disseminated across the entire world, similar to TikTok, and we'll be living under their kind of information regime. Those same content guidelines that were put in place to, make sure that usage in China was compliant with their rules will be put in place in the United States, and we'll be living under that same content regime.
Wow. Well, this is, again, just so scary. And I'm so grateful that there are people like you in this space that are looking at this, that are participating and willing to describe it for the rest of us so that we understand how big of a threat this actually genuinely poses. So Jake Denton, really appreciate your thoughts, your work on this. Everyone can follow you at RealJDenton on social media. And anything else that you want to highlight with your work at the Heritage Foundation or elsewhere?
Yeah, you can just find our writings at the Heritage Foundation. You can type in my name or go to the tech tab, and you can see all the things that we're working on. But stay tuned, because there will be lots and lots of artificial intelligence content coming out soon. So good stuff ahead.
Well, look forward to having you back on then when we can discuss all of that more. So thanks so much, Jake Denton. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hello, friends. I'm Jenna Ellis, host of The Jenna Ellis Show on the Salem Podcast Network. And if you are like me and you've been looking at all of these controversies over woke businesses and corporations over the last few years that care a lot more about their diversity, equity, and inclusion score than they do about consumers and patriots like you and me, then you need to make a difference and vote with your dollars. Stop funding these woke corporations and go to businesses that are with products that are made in the USA and actually support the family values that you and I do. Go to patriotsareswitching.com. With over 450 products in this online marketplace and growing, this is the largest gathering of patriotic consumers and business owners that actually champion and share our values. So go to patriotsareswitching.com, make a difference, and vote with your dollars today. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. So go to mypillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's mypillow.com, promo code Jenna.